Previously on the channel we built this through-hole soldering practice kit, which is this nice little clock. Today we're going to have a look at some SMD soldering. We've got a choice of two kits. These are actually both the same kit, but they came from different suppliers. This one has a battery box, this one does not. They both have their ICs loose in the bag. We've also got our 2 megabyte SIMM memory, which is for the Diodes Amiga board. And you might remember that during some debugging session I managed to blow this up, and there is quite a spectacular mountain in the middle of that chip. And I suspect this chip is also dead. So this is an SMD board. We can fix this because it's just SMD stuff, and yeah. So what are the tools that we might use to do SMD soldering? Well, we've got solder, obviously. We've also got solder paste, and we've got our trusty soldering iron. But also we have hot air. And we also have this device. This is a hot plate, which is just a little flatbed heater. So there are actually 3 different methods that we can use to do SMD soldering. And we've got a microscope here that we might want to use to do the smaller stuff, although for this stuff we could probably get away without it. And of course our tweezers and hand magnifier. It's fair to say that in retro computing we won't often be doing anything that's smaller than 0805, so that's kind of what we're going to concentrate on. Let's just take this kit out and see what we've got. So we've got a PCB which has got a bunch of resistors on it, a bunch of transistors on it, a bunch of diodes on it, more resistors. These are all 0805s. These are tiny things that are 0402. It's going to be very rare that we need to fiddle about with those. This size of chip we probably will come across, and these quad flat packs QFPs will probably come across. These are intermediate size, which are still big enough to hand solder probably, but 0603. So the 0805 and the 0603 refer to the size of the package. The bigger the numbers, the bigger the parts. So we've got some instructions here, entirely in Chinese, but it's got a circuit diagram which is useful. We'll have to look at the chips and see if they've actually got any identifiers on them. Right, let's have a look. Ah yes, it's an NE555. It says so on the back. And the other chip is a CD4017. Can't read what the thing says, but we do know at least the values, the identifiers, and roughly what they are. So it says 1206. That's the largest size that we've got on here. Let's have a look at these parts. So that's going to be the 555. These work just like regular through-hole chips in the sense that, there we go, pin 1 is denoted by a spot in the corner. And with these QFPs you will see that there's a spot in the corner, and there is a flat bit on that corner there, and that goes to the flat bit on the silkscreen. So that goes around there like that. So these have got absolutely no identification on them. We have to just figure out what they are. We can do that slightly by size. These are, I think, resistor networks, and they go here, they're 0603s. So we've seen resistor networks in through-hole packages. They are those yellow things with the single inline legs. Here we are. This is a little packet of 2K2 resistor networks. So you can see that they have printing on one side and a spot, and that is pin 1. And if these are bust, then that is the common pin, and all those resistors go to that. If they are separate resistors, then it doesn't really matter because they're in pairs. Also we have here these little transistors, SOT23s. After practicing your soldering, you will no doubt be wanting to find other boards to make, and so why not check out our sponsor PCBWay. They have hundreds of shared projects on their website, and you can just simply pick the project, whether it is a motherboard or a cartridge for a Commodore 64. Just pick the project and select the color that you want, the number of boards that you want, and within a week you will get a little package. Prices start from just $5 for 10 boards. You can also get your own boards built. This is one of mine. This is another one of mine. They can do surface mount boards as well as through-hole boards. We've built this on the channel. If you don't fancy doing your own soldering, they can assemble the board for you as well. Oh, and they do 3D printing and sheet metal work and CNC machining and all that other stuff too. Check them out, www.pcbway.com. The first thing that we need to do, as before, is clean the board. I find my little bottle of IPA spray. And wipe it down. Now you can mix and match techniques with these boards, so we can do some hand soldering of the big stuff, and then we can do hot plate or heat gun soldering with the other stuff. Let's try some of each, shall we? Now, as you can see from the fact that I've got one that's already built and working, this is not the first time I've done this. And in fact, I've filmed this entire video, but the OBS software that I use for filming the microscope basically didn't work. And while it captured a nice image, it only caught the top left-hand corner, and consequently nothing of what I was actually doing. So, anyway. This shows you what the thing does, and as you can see, it's basically a LED chaser. So we're going to start with the 0402s because we're a sucker for punishment, and for that we're going to use this. This is a hot plate, and basically we put the board on the top, do our soldery things, and then that heats up and melts the solder and solders the board. And of course, to do that we're going to use solder paste. This is low melting point solder. It only has a melting point of 138, so we don't need to get this very hot. Certainly we don't need the 350 degrees that we would normally use for a soldering iron. And essentially what this is little tiny balls of solder in a suspension of flux. We put it on, it's a syringe, you can take the orange thing off and the plunger goes in there. And we put a fine point on the end, and that does our thing. You're supposed to keep that stuff in the fridge because it does go off if you don't. Now, I don't know if you can see these, but there are 11 of them in the tray. They are so small there's not even a marking on them, so we've got absolutely no idea what value they are. And I've already lost one because there were 12 in the packet, and the first one I have no idea what happened to that or where it went. I just didn't see it. So we're going to try and put these on. This is the first time I've attempted to solder anything as small as 0402. So I hope this is going to work. So I'm literally going to put a spot. And we're probably going to find that this is too much, so I can barely see it. But with this stuff, less is more. Right, so tweezers. Basically, put the resistor on the pad. These are just literally 1mm by 0.5mm, so they are really tiny. And I'm hoping that what's going to happen is that as the solder melts, it will push them into place. But we shall see. And we have one left over. That looks good as far as I can tell. Now what we do is we plug it in, switch it on, Okay, there's a display on the front and it's telling me that it is heating up, 45, and we can already see that the solder is starting to puddle, 88. Yeah, you can see that even with the tiniest splodge of solder, that is way too much. 125. We're getting close, and yes, now it's definitely melting. You can see some of these. Just need a little nudge. I think that's it. And basically we just turn it off and let it cool. So the next thing to do is to see how well we did. The board has cooled down and I've taken it off the plate. So we've got two little test points here that we can measure the resistance between that end and that end. These are all connected in series. So we don't know what value these resistors are, so it's going to be interesting just to see what we get and indeed if it works. So we're going to go this test point here. $220K, so that's good because that's not open circuit, which means that they are all connected. There's 10 of these, so if that's 220K, I'm going to guess that each of these resistors is 22K. Let's measure one and find out. Pick one at random, this one will do. $22K, yes. So that worked. We just have these resistor packs to do, and these are going to be fun. I've not done these before, but I think we go on the same principle. So let's just have a look at this. This is, it says 241 on it, so it's 240 ohms, and basically it's 4 resistors in a single pack. Okay, I think they're done. Show you this. Test point 1 to test point 2. 4.7K. Right, there's 50 of these, and hopefully there's a couple of spares. I've taken the opportunity off camera to empty them into the little tub and turn them all the right way up and the right way round. That way, when I pick them out, they'll all be the right way round on the board, and that will stop me getting annoyed because there will be 50 resistors on the board and one will be upside down. So these are oriented north-south. And what I'm going to do is actually change that so that they are oriented east-west. A bit of blue tape just to hold it down. I'm going to work my way along a row as it is here, or actually a column as it is in reality. And we'll do that, and then I'll do the rest of them off camera. So the first thing that I'm going to do is add a little touch of solder to the right hand pad. There we go, that may or may not be too much. And then, because we live with flux, double flux on each one. and that is going to be hopefully enough flux to do the other side when we come to it. We pick a resistor and you can see it's the right way around. Melt the pad, slide it on. Done. Next one. Melt the pad, slide it on. So there we've got them all tacked on one side. So what we're going to do is turn the board around. Now we simply go along and the tiniest bit of solder, there we go. So that's the first 5 done, and we can get our pad, because you can see these are all effectively one resistor in a row. Put that there, and then you can see it, and I can see this as well. So hopefully we should see that from there to there it's 497 ohms. So that's good. Now I'm going to turn the camera off and do the other 45, and I'll see you in just a moment. They're in the pot. You can see the spares that we had from the previous ones, the 0402 and the 0805. These transistors are slightly bigger than those. We're going to fit them in exactly the same way. So I'm going to add a little spot of solder to the pointy end of the triangle, as it were. These pads are smaller, of course. And as before, we'll put some flux on there and then melt it and slide it in. So we don't have any spares of these, so we need to not lose them. Melt the solder, slide it in. Melt the solder, slide it in. So just put your tweezers on the top, remelt the solder, and that will just make sure that they are down firm. So if we turn the board around, we can see that there is flux. So that's going to be enough, hopefully. One tiny dab of solder is going to be enough to do both pins. I apologise for having the fan running, but this does generate rather a lot of fumes with the flux. So there we are, that's done. We're getting through it. Next we'll do these diodes. Diodes are quite interesting. These are 1N4148s, and you can see they look just like regular through-hole 1N4148s. They've got the classic orange coppery body and the black bar at one end. The only thing is, instead of a lead coming out, they have an end cap. So you can predict the end cap. The black bar goes to where the bar is on there, which is what the arrow points to, and we're going to do our usual thing. Then we pick them out. It's a little bit easier because you don't need to worry about which way up, just which way round. There we go. And we just work our way down the row. I think that one. Capacitors. These are still basically the same size as the 0805 resistors. You can see one of our spare resistors, that's from the set that I didn't show you. They don't have any markings on them, and they are the same on both sides. So you have to rely on knowing what value they are, essentially. As always, we're going to turn it sideways. We can get them all in the frame. Tape it down. Same procedure. Now I'm chapter marking all these things so you can just skip to any particular component that you want to see. So as usual, we start by adding a little spot of solder on the right hand pad. We do it on the right hand pad because I'm right handed. If you're left handed, you might want to do it on the left hand pad. Or you may want to be cack-handed, in which case you can do it on which side you want. So, spot of flux on the top. This is going to give us our lubrication. You always want to be well lubricated. Now, these are more chunky than the resistors, so we have to be more watchful that they don't tombstone, and by tombstoning I mean that it stands up on one end. They are sort of prone to doing that. Now, you want to make sure that there is good contact up the side of the end cap, so the solder flows up it. You also want to make sure that the capacitor is flat, and you can see this one isn't. So what we're going to do, put some pressure on the top. There we go, that just settles it down. So even though I slid it in, it still raised itself at one end, so it's worth pressing it down. There's plenty of flux left from side 1 to do side 2. So now we're in the situation where there's less space between the capacitors because of the height, and so we need to take a little bit more care. And some of them are a little bit crooked, but that's okay. Now we come to the ICs. What I'm going to do here is tin the corner. Now I'm going to do this corner not because it is particularly important, and I'll do this one as well, but it's convenient. Then I'm going to splodge a load of flux. Make sure that the component is oriented in the correct direction. So we've got the little pin which represents pin 1, the little dimple, and the notch on the silk screen which also represents which way up it goes. So it's going to go like that. We can squidge it down and just nudge it into place. And then we just put our soldering iron on pin 1 without touching, well, I say pin 1, the corner pin, without touching the pad itself, and hopefully that is going to actually solder it. No, it didn't. We're going to need more solder on that. There we go, that did. And we can do one on the other side, and that should have it tacked into place. So now we can go down. There we go. Obviously I recommend when you do it that you do it at a more comfortable angle. But that looks like every pin has got solder on it and every pin is connected. So I'm going to turn it around for this other one and do it at a more comfortable angle. Bit of tape holds it down and stops it from moving about. So once again, flux. This is probably the most time-consuming part, is actually getting it all lined up, because even with the flux on there it is going to slide about at the slightest provocation. Okay, and then creep in, let it flow onto the pin without actually touching the pin. And I'm going to turn it around to do the other side in a more comfortable way. And there's no solder on this, so we're going to need to apply solder, let it flow onto the pin, and that's good. Now we can go down the other pins, and one blob of solder on the end of your iron will comfortably do the whole side of the chip. So this isn't really drag soldering, this is sort of dip and poke, I suppose. There we go. So the next part is the smallest component in the actual circuit, and these are the 0603 resistors. And I've got them in the tray, and you can see how small they are compared with the 0805s and the 0402. Procedure is exactly the same. We are going to tin one side. You can see I've already bridged that one, so this is where our solder braid comes in handy again. Technique is the same. The components are smaller, and so we need to pay more attention. There we go. So these are the LEDs. They are 0805s. The interesting thing is that they are polarized exactly like any ordinary diode, and that is denoted by a little green flash on one end. Now on the back they also have a green arrow, and the arrow points to where the flash is. So it's very important to get them the right way round, otherwise your LED won't light up. The process is exactly the same as for all the other components. They are heat sensitive though, so we need to minimize the amount of time that the soldering iron is in contact with the LED. So that forms sort of kind of like an arrowish shape, which means that we know that these go on this way round. Like that. With LED, it's more important to make sure that they are lined up nicely, because when they light up you will see the difference if they are wrongly positioned. And of course this is always a situation of do as I tell you, not do as I do. Okay. Now exactly the same as the other chips. So you can see it's got pin 1 in that corner and the flattened off edge, and you can see the flattened off edge on the PCB. So we're going to do opposite corners. Not like that. We're going to need flux. And then hopefully we're going to let the flux was very reluctant. Yes, that seems to be attached. And all the pins are over the pad, so now we can flux it up and solder it on. I'm not convinced that's actually connecting. No, it's not. I think we need to be a little more positive in getting it over the top of that pin. There we go, this is a bit more sort of draggy. I'm not going to show you doing the other one because it's just going to be the same as this. Now it's entirely possible that there's a better way of doing this, and you might well be jumping up and down in your seat saying, oh, I know how you do this. Please feel free to tell me in the comments if you know a better way, but you can then just go down with the pick and basically see if any of these pins move, and if they move then we know that we haven't soldered it. In case you're wondering, that is the National Emergency Practice Alarm. Exciting, eh? That is the signal to go and find your bed, get under it and wrap yourself up and kiss your ass goodbye. So that does appear to be soldered. I will do the other one off camera and that will be ready. Well, I cocked that up. Can you see what I did? I'll give you a few seconds to spot it. Yep, I put that chip on sideways. So that's pin 1, and that's where pin 1 should be. That's not actually part of the circuit that does the flashy bit of this, but we need to fix it. So this is going to introduce another technique, because we are going to need to fix this, and what we're going to do is the same technique that we're going to use on this to fix this. So it's going to be good practice. And what we're going to do is we're going to use hot air basically to melt the solder and take the chip off. To protect everything around it, I'm going to use this aluminium tape. You can use Kapton tape, but I find that to be sort of less good. So that's going to protect the surrounding components so that they don't come off and also don't get cooked, which is going to be a good thing. Load of flux. I'm going to have the fan on for this because it's going to get smoky and that will be noisy. So let's do this. There we go, job done. Now we can let it cool down and then we can clean it up and put it back in the right place, hopefully the right way around. So we can clean off this QFP pad and then we can use our syringe soldering technique. Right, so once again we'll just go over this. The flux we clean off and then we put more on. So this goes on, we make sure it's the right way around. That looks right. So by the looks of it, we've got one solder bridge on that corner and one that is not soldered. There we go, job done. So while I've got the heat gun out, let's take these ICs off and replace them. I think hopefully we'll only need to do possibly just that one, but I'm going to do both on this side because I want to keep these capacitors on. So I'm going to use some foil. It should be okay with those on the other side. That shouldn't make a difference. I'm going to turn it that way around. So there we go. Foil is basically just to protect those capacitors. I'll put this offcut on here as an anchor for that side. Once again, lots of flux. We'll do this one first. It's going to be noisy again. There we go, it's come off. We'll do the same with this one. There we go. So basically we're just going to clean that and tin it. So we'll go over this with some solder braid, basically just clean the pads off. There we go, plenty of solder off that. Clean some IPA in a cotton bud. Now what we're going to do is get a couple of new chips. Make sure they are the right way round. So I'm going to use the solder paste for this. If this was a single-sided board you could use the hot plate, but because there's chips on both sides we're going to have to use hot air. And the reason that we need to use hot air and solder paste is because these chips are sort of like J-shaped. There we go. Once again the hot air. And this time we're not trying to get it to come off, we're just trying to melt the solder. And hopefully that's going to be attached. Okay, let it cool down and that's stuck. We'll check the connections later. For now, let's do the other one. So again, we'll leave it to cool and then check it out. Let's have a look. It's under the microscope. That side's looking good. Oh, we've got a bit of a solder ball there. I'll clean off. That side's looking good. Turn it around. That side's looking good. And that side's looking good. We've got another solder ball. Okay, that will clean off with some IPA. So we'll clean that board off and then we'll be ready to test that out in the Diodes. Okay, that's cleaned. I didn't show it because this is not a cleaning channel, and I'm sure you know how to clean stuff. IPA, spongy thing, wipe, and so on. Now, I've got the previous one that I built, just to compare it. You can see they actually came from a different company, so although they are ostensibly the same, you can see that there are differences in the colour of the solder mask. There you go, side by side. And so you can tell that one is different to the other. But of course this one's got batteries plugged into it and this one hasn't. Now I don't have two sets of batteries, so what I'm going to do is I've got this little USB-A lead that I can solder on, and that should make a nice little connection for that. And we can try this out and we can run them both together. Right, shall we give it a try? So here we go. Now this one runs at a different speed, which I think is interesting. Okay. So there we have it, and this is probably down to different values on the 555 timer. Turn the lights down so that you can see it a bit better. Anyhow, thank you for watching. If you've got this far, please check out my Patreon and engage in that. and like and subscribe and comment in the section below. We will do something else next time. So, see ya. Bye.